For the next week, they just put so much good stuff on him. I mean, truly, in 61 years, he really did a lot of social and a lot of good stuff, as the world would say. He really was very effective. And they're going to put a statue of him. As a matter of fact, they've already got one. But let me share with you, without Jesus Christ, he was nothing.
Amen. That's exactly right, brother.
The good, the culture, the well-spoken, moral person is as completely lacking of the Spirit of God as the most obvious and wasted sinner. You put the greatest cultured person on this side and the worst sinner on this side, as it were, and they're both the same. They're both without God.
That's right. That's right.
And of course, he hates to be told what kind of real person he is.
That's the truth.
He is such a great Pharisee. They see other persons as one who is really bad. They cannot even imagine that they are like other sinners. They are insulted if you say to them, you are in the same boat with the drunkard. With God, you are the same as any other sinner. They think it's only a cultured issue, a social difference, a superficial one between the so-called bad sinner and the moral cultured, good moral man. You'd be surprised how many people join the Masons. Boy, all of a sudden they think they are such a moral person. They believe, and I know I've got a relative of mine who believes that now that he is a full-fledged Mason, that he doesn't need to go to church. He doesn't believe he needs to do anything. I'm glad some of us got the right idea about it, but there are some who miss the concept.
Right.
The fact really is, all men in their inner person think only of their own interests, and of their ability in life are entirely outside the reality of the Spirit and the Lord, and that's what Paul is telling us. Verse 6 says, to be carnally minded is death. What this verse really should read is this. The mind of the flesh is death. And what Paul is saying, that the people who do mind the things of the flesh and have that sort of mind that does that are dead.
Amen.
Look with me, if you will, to Matthew chapter 16. Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 and 17. When Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, whom do you say that I am? The Son of Man am? And they said, some say that thou art John the Baptist, some say Elijah. He saith unto them, but whom do you say that I am? And Simon Peter answered and said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. Verse 17. And Jesus answered and said unto him, blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. Amen. Then later on, verse 21, if you look at it, from that time forth began Jesus to show unto his disciples how that he must go into Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed and be raised again the third day. Good old Peter, right? Verse 22. Then Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee. That was Peter, wasn't it? Look at verse 23. But he turned and said to Peter, Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense unto me, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but those that be of man. Peter was saying, God, we can't afford, he was saying to Jesus, we can't afford for you to be leaving. We need you here. That word savorest in the King James really means to think. Thou thinkest not the things that be of God. God's Son came in order to die for our salvation. What Jesus is saying, the trouble with you, Peter, in effect, is that your whole mentality is wrong. Your whole way of thinking is wrong. You are not thinking the things of God. You are thinking the things of man. And to have a mind of the flesh, the world, is to think outside the Word, the Lord Jesus Christ. Look with me at Romans chapter 12. Look at verse 2. And be not conformed to this world, but ye be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is good and acceptable and the perfect will of God. A believer is a person who seeks to know God and what God is doing, and we want to get involved in it. There's another couple of verses, Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 17. This I say therefore, and testify in the Lord. Look at it. That ye henceforth walk not as other Gentiles walk, in the vanity of their mind. Have you noticed, I don't know who the first person that tattooed his arm in basketball, the professionals. I mean, it's all over their arms. Now you can't hardly find a football player or a basketball player whose arm is not tattooed. They're walking as other Gentiles are walking. If for no other thing, I would not get a tattoo because everybody else is doing it. Having the understanding darkened, been alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart, who being past feelings have given themselves over to lasciviousness, to work all uncleanness with greediness. But ye have not so learned Christ. If so be that ye have heard him, and ye have been taught by him, as the truth in Jesus Christ. Notice it says that ye put off concerning the former conversations of the old man, which is corrupt according to deceitful lust, and be renewed in your spirit, in your mind, and that ye put on the new man, which is after God, is created in righteousness and holiness. Listen, a person who has been born again of the Spirit no longer walks after the flesh of the Gentiles in the world. You put off all that, start to say, stuff that you do in the world for fun, and you put on something new. Let me give you another verse, 1 Corinthians 2, just in case we haven't got it yet. 1 Corinthians 2, while I come up for breath. Verse 14. But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. But he that is spiritual judges all things, yea, he himself is judged by no man. Look at verse 6. The mind of the flesh is death, and I'm getting hungry. Going to Maysville first. Why does a man do things of the flesh in the world? Because he's spiritually dead. That's right. Here's what Paul's saying. That this person is dead to God. He lives as if there is no God. God is not even in his thoughts. in the least. He is living and doing all what the world would say is great stuff. But he is living as if God did not exist in his thinking. I can't get up in the morning without thinking God somewhere. I can't go a day or a moment without thinking, God, are you here? That's what I'm afraid of. What are you doing today, God, that I need to get involved in? This means that he is dead to God. Spiritual death is that a person living outside the life of God. The spiritual realm does not exist for him. We say in soul winning, are you interested in spiritual things? When I started learning how to go out soul winning, the first thing I did to a person, and I was sitting down with him, I would say, do you ever think about spiritual things? It's a dumb question, because if he's lost, he doesn't. Well, have you ever considered the idea that maybe you are going to hell? Well, I did hear somewhere that someone said that if I didn't do this, I could go to hell. I've really never gave it much thought, but perhaps maybe I should. And what I'm praying for in that God is preparing his heart for me to talk to him. Of course, he's not interested in spiritual things, but what I'm hoping is that God will open his heart, that he said, do you know, maybe I should know something about it.
Amen.
You might as well be preaching to a dead man in some cases. Their mind is shut out from the life of the Lord Jesus Christ. And if a person says, I point out, don't care anything about God at this moment, you know what I say? I'll pray that God will open your heart, and I stop it. I don't try to push it.
I don't either.
You can't push a dead man to life. He's as dead as he's ever going to get, and you cannot try to convince him he's dead. He's already dead. God has to bring light to him.
Amen.
Look at verse 7. Because the carnal mind, that is the mind of the flesh, is what the word should be instead of carnal, is intimate against God. Because the mindset on the flesh is hostile towards God.
Sure.
One translator puts it this way: because the mind dominated by the sinful flesh is hostile to God, for he does not marshal itself under the command of the law of God, neither is he able to. Moreover, those who are in the sphere of the sinful nature are not able to please God. The mind of the flesh is the correct term, not a carnal Christian. Paul is talking about an unbeliever here. Paul is talking about a person of the flesh. This explains why that the mind of the flesh is death. If a man has bad feelings towards God, he's obviously outside the life of God. And that means he is spiritually dead. So, Paul again talks about the Christian and the non-Christian. Not two kinds of Christian. A Christian does not hate God. Neither just the opposite, indeed. So, in a sense, there is no such thing as a carnal Christian.